Hello everyone. Thank you for tagging along with us today. We're trying something new on our channel and we decided to finally try our hand at some commentary over some gameplay. We figured that since we were on our training arc, discussing and sharing some choices we made in game is definitely key to finally improving and getting somewhere in this game. So on the right over here, I am playing Lucci, and on the left we have a good buddy of ours who agreed to film some content with us, and he is playing Enel. As the game goes on, you're gonna start to see I think I made some interesting choices in this game. I don't know if they were the best choices, but I guess that's the point of this commentary, to go over and review what could have been done differently. Please don't hesitate to make some comments on what either player could have done differently, because I'm sure my buddy would appreciate some constructive criticism as well, and we definitely do as well. It's not a training arc without some sort of acknowledgement of what we could have done differently. So on to the actual gameplay itself. After our first turns, I think at this point I just decide to swing with leader, and I use leader ability, which, you know, usually goes really well until the first card you mill is literally just your Gecko Moria, which always feels pretty terrible. I think at this point in my hand I have an Ice Age, I have a 6-cost Brook, I have a Lucci, I have a 5-cost Kaku, and I think there's one Gecko Moria in there. So I already feel a little bit safe having one in there. And my opponent at this point also just decides to swing extremely tall, which I maybe might be a blessing in disguise, because we just respect those and we take those hits, and I don't have to worry about a Shirahoshi 2-cost blocker just yet. But the turn passes, and because my hand doesn't feel that great to play right now, I think I also, in response, I swing really tall. I'm not too sure if that was the correct choice, but it felt like playing the 5-cost Kaku or the 4-cost Lucci without any full value, without them returning anything on board. Something about that felt really, I guess, a little goofy, but honestly, swinging 10k after attaching everything felt pretty goofy as well. So I'm still debating if that choice was correct or not. So I pass here, and my opponent, I think on his end, definitely has something to play. I can see a Shirahoshi 5-cost in there to start cycling hand, but if I remember correctly, I think he just drops Thunderbolt Sabo with no ability. So here he rests his Dawn, and I remembered correctly, he does play the Thunderbolt Sabo with no effect. Which gets me a little excited, because, you know, now there's finally something to remove. He swings for 6, and I counter out just because I like to be a bit more conservative in taking life, especially going up against a deck I know will have some late game aggression with the 10-cost Ace. And also, you know, filling your trash in a Lucci deck is always extremely important. I know that there are a lot of times where I forget about that and I just start taking life. So I swing 6 into lead here, and I -1 to the 5-cost Sabo. And I did that just because not having stage really sucks. I think every game I played this night, I was not able to find stage anywhere else but my trash. But luckily I had the 6-cost Brook in hand, and I was able to get rid of his now 4-cost Thunderbolt Sabo. So the turn passes here, and he does forget to put the Sabo in the trash, but he does remember eventually. I do remind him. And at this point, he's gone to his 8 Dawn, so I'm thinking it's 8-cost Katakuri, or it's the 7-cost Rush Enel. I know a lot of yellow players are taking that in lately, and it's definitely been giving me a hard time. So here he puts down the Katakuri, and I remind him about the Sabo, and now my Brook has gone into my life. Which, you know, sometimes it feels pretty annoying, but it never hurts to get another life. Especially when they use the Katakuri first instead of swinging first, so then, you know, I always feel a little bit more comfortable taking that life, since technically speaking I go net neutral at my life at that current standing. So at this point, I'm still sort of thinking what to do here and how to efficiently minus the cost off of this Katakuri to take it off board. It's definitely, again, Like, I definitely felt the pain of not having the stage throughout this entire game. I do have an Ice Age in hand, but sometimes I just feel like saving it for the 10 cost rush aces. So you see me swing for 5, and then I use leader ability and I turn Katakuri into a 1 cost, and once again I have milled yet another stage, and that never feels nice. I think like a tiny sad violin definitely plays in my head whenever that happens. I throw caution to the wind though, and I do play the Ice Age anyway because I don't think I have any other efficient minusing. So I use the 5 cost Kaku on the Katakuri because at that point it's at 2 cost, and at the very least it's gone. It also seems like I accidentally put 3 CP cards to the bottom instead of just 2 for the 5 cost Kaku, which is definitely a misplay on my part. It's always really important to have as much CP in trash. I use Spandam just for a bit more defensive play so I can finally get maybe more 2Ks in hand, which I do. I did grab the Khalifa, and I just pass at that point because it's not like there's much else I can do. And at this point he puts the Yamato down, which gets a lot of really good value just because it has the power to get rid of the 5 cost Kaku, which always, you know, that also felt pretty hefty to lose that on my board. So he heals here, he goes way back all the way up to 2, and then he swings 6. And I do take the life here. Maybe I should have countered out because I think later on in the game he gets way more comfortable to be extremely aggressive, and then I just don't have the means to keep up with that aggression. So the turn passes, I go to my 10 Dawn, and I think to myself, wow, it really would have been nice if I had A, been able to get rid of that Katakuri without Ice Age, or B, I had yet another Ice Age in hand. So I know at this point I do believe I have at least 1 Gecko Moria in hand. So I want to fill the trash to see what Gecko Moria can bring out just so he has more options. So I use leader ability to mill a Gecko Moria, which I think you can see my despair a little bit on screen there. There is now, however, finally a stage in my hand, which hopefully combines well on my 10 Dawn turn with an inevitable Gecko Moria. But he gets the Shirahoshi trigger, and I know that for Enel that's really good because I think from what I hear, Enel tends to get a bit clunky with either hands being filled with only 2Ks or hands being filled with only big bodies. I know that, you know, when luck is a factor, luck will also be a factor in how good your hand is as well. So I cut out a bit of my thinking time here because I take a long time to decide to play my inevitable Gecko Moria turn. And I decide to play a bit more of a defensive Gecko Moria turn. I play out my Spandam and I play out my Rebecca. The Spandam will search a Spandine. Luckily it does fill my trash with a Helmeppo, which is nice for a follow-up Gecko Moria. However, I remember at this point, half of my Gecko Morias were in my trash and I did not have another one in my hand. And my Rebecca grabs a Sabo because I feel like eventually I will need it in my follow-up. I play stage for my last step in this turn, which, you know, I figured better late than never. Of course, it always feels better when it's there earlier. It's unfortunate that the Yamato got to stay on board. It's moments like these where I feel like I should be playing 2 Ice Ages instead of just the one I play. But I upped my stage count from 3 to 4, which I think is a little bit ironic saying out loud now, just because I feel like I was digging for it a lot more. So he swings 5 into my Spandam, which is, you know, fine with me. I don't really want to have too much attention on my life quite yet. But he swings 9 into life, and I think to myself, awesome, an opportunity to fill my trash with the things I needed to have, which is just essentially more Spandines and more 2Ks to grab later on with a Rebecca. He plays a 10 cost ace, which feels really, really bad, especially next to a 9 cost Yamato. And I think at this point, I recognize I can't get rid of either of them. I think I'm really gonna have to bust it out to try and do that. So at the beginning of this next turn, I used Tempest Kick to -3 to the Yamato and to draw one, because definitely the goal for this turn is to get rid of at least one of those huge bodies. I find that whenever I play against Enel, or even decks like Perona that also run a lot of big bodies, is that, you know, the moment that one big body stays on board for more than a turn, the tempo is kind of lost for Lucci. So I use another Tempest Kick, it goes down to 3, I draw another card, and I use Stage, and now it goes down to 1, which is nice on my part. So after some time at deliberating into what I do next, I swing into the Yamato, because I don't want to swing into life just yet and give him some value off of another possible 10-cost ace, and I -1 to the ace. Unfortunately, it does mill me a Tempest Kick, which would have felt nice or like more assuring to have in hand. He obviously doesn't need to counter out for that, and then I spend some time deliberating some more in terms of what to do next. I think at this point I am a little worried about how much cards he has in hand. I play another Rebecca because I think I get a little bit scared, and I tell myself probably it's time to be a little bit more defensive. Grab back a 2k, and with my remaining 4 Dawn, probably just play out a Lucci and KO the... Oh, I play out a Brook. I think there the Brook is probably what I decided to do, just because A, I maybe didn't have Lucci in hand, and I wanted to save some Dawn to swing into that ace. It's unfortunate though that his hand size was so huge, so that no matter what, he probably had the counter to be able to swing at, to counter out of that swing. But I don't think my play here was entirely incorrect. After he shows me that he did in fact have the counter, it was just a simple pass turn at this point. And I think I felt a little bit comfortable because I had the 2 blockers. If he decided to try and swing into my Gecko, I also had enough counter in hand to protect that. Here at this point, I think my friend is deliberating where to swing, and he ends up taking the choice to swing into the Brook, which I think is a pretty good idea, only because at that point it's my one guaranteed form of removal that he can't necessarily see in my hand. I counter out because I think it's good to have Brook on board. You never know what kind. I think he's just too much value to have that guaranteed -1 and removal if something goes down to 0. I do have a habit of hard protecting my Brooks though. It's rarely ever failed me, but we'll see how that keeps going. After cutting out what was an extremely long time of thinking, he does decide to swing 10 into the Brook, and I block that with Rebecca, and then he swings once again into the Brook. I think at this point I do let the Brook go. However, looking back at this now, I'm thinking to myself, if I was hard protecting the Brook that much, should I have just went all the way with hard protecting it and just let it stay on board? Especially because, again, like it's my guaranteed removal. I would need a lot of minusing to pull it off, considering there are 2 10-cost rush aces on board, but you know, it still would have been possible. But regardless, I let it go after seeing, despite having Stage and Leader for a guaranteed -3, there's definitely not enough minusing in my hand. After seeing there's probably not much chances at removing at least 1 body on board, I just put down another Sabo blocker just for a more defensive play. And the KO immunity is nice just in case he has like a Raigo he wants to use to get rid of my Gecko Moria, or for some reason he gets an Onami out of trigger. And then the next priority is probably just swinging with Gecko and hoping he doesn't have the counter to protect his 10-cost rush ace. But knowing how many cards he still has in his hand, it's probably more than likely that he has the counter. So I do swing pretty tall into the ace. I swing 14 into 10. I also see that I have an Isho in my hand at this point in the game, and I think I got it a little bit later. I think I got it past my 8 Dawn curve. I think right now with the Lucci deck, I know it's really amazing against Enel, but I'm having a really hard time trying to time when to drop Isho, especially when I get him a little too late. I kind of think to myself, oh, do I just, you know, don't even play it at all? So when he finishes countering out, I think to myself, okay, I've gotten some counter out of his hand. His hand is starting to get a little smaller, but I have this gut feeling that it happened a turn too late, or maybe even 2 turns too late. Because what's staring down at me is 2 10 cost rush aces, and the potential for yet another 10 cost rush ace. I do have the Rebecca and the Sabo blocker with the KO immunity. I have some 2Ks in hand, but it definitely doesn't feel like enough, especially with the gut feeling that something else is about to come, and it's probably a Katakuri or a Yamato or that rush ace. He swings 5 and I take it. I think that might have been a little bit of a mistake. It was technically speaking a free block, but I know at that point I was a little worried that, you know, if I just gave him the free block, he would start swinging his aces into my Gecko or my blocker Sabo a little bit more comfortably. He swings 10 with one of the 10 cost rush aces, and I'm pretty sure I block at this point. However, as I'm watching this sequence go through, I definitely think I was outmathed at this point. Like, I guess I just wasn't seeing that regardless if I block or if I counter, the game is probably already his at his point. So after blocking with Rebecca, he swings again with his 10 cost rush ace, and he keeps going for my life, which again is a smart idea. I think at this point he doesn't have to be too worried about the board. I counter out of that and I give him 3 2Ks, which I think really gives him an indication of what my hand's looking like. It was really unfortunate that throughout this game his big bodies were just able to stay. Here is like the really last nail in my coffin is another 10 cost rush ace coming down, and he swings once more into my life. And now he knows I definitely don't have the counter. When you brought that down, you can definitely see my, oh my gosh, you've managed to find 3. Once the turn passes, I think at this point I'm sort of thinking to myself, what can I do here to make or what feels like my last turn a little less painful. I think to myself, hey, let's just get 1 counter out of his hand. I know he has 4 cards in hand, and he probably has it. So he swings out of one of the swings towards one of his 10 cost rush aces, and I play his Ducey. I get rid of 1, and unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that's all I can do at this turn. After passing, he gets the opportunity to refresh his characters, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, if he just swung everything normally and then ended it with Tendon attached to Shirahoshi, he still would probably have it. Here he swings 10, and he just goes straight for my life, because at that point there's definitely no way. I block, and it becomes really obvious I don't have the counter anymore. And then he swings, oh yeah, you could definitely see me convincing him to swing with Shirahoshi, just for the laughs. He tries to swing, I think he tries to swing just 5, just so the game can keep going, but I tell him no, it's gotta be completely punk metal with Shirahoshi. That last swing signifies the end of the game, and thus the end of the commentary. Please drop a like, a constructive comment, a subscription, and feel free to follow our socials linked below, and we will tag team again next video.